Hi, I'm Liz with Liz's Crafts, and today I'm going to show you how I made this 3-stack pumpkin. And I did get these from Hobby Lobby a couple years ago after the fall season, and they were 90% off, so each of these was 69 cents or possibly 70 cents, whatever. So what I need to do is take the wire out of the bottom of 2 of these and take the stem off of 2 of them. So it was a little difficult to get the wire out because it was bent on the end. You know, it had a loop on the end. But yeah, I got it out with minimal damage. So then I take the top one that's going to have the stem and the wire, and I poke it through the one I just took the wire and the stem off. Now really what I should have done was waited to put the wire in the second one. And you'll see that in a minute. But I go ahead and remove the stem and the wire out of this other one. Like I said, it was a little difficult because the end of the wire is curled over. And I didn't want to tear the pumpkin up. So I do poke the wire from the top one through that one. It is a little long, so I'm going to cut part of it off. And this is a pretty thick, sturdy wire. So I got my wire cutters there and I just bent the wire back and forth until it finally snapped off. So now that I have it the right size, I should have just totally taken the that middle pumpkin totally off. But instead I glued it on. So it did make things a little more difficult. So if you do this, make sure you decorate, put your Spanish moss on before you put your pumpkins on the metal stick. And you can bend the metal rod or stick or whatever you want to call it if it doesn't sit straight, and later on you'll see that. So I just take my Spanish moss and I slide the pumpkin, well, I slide the bottom one completely off. And I put some hot glue around the top of it. And then I put my Spanish moss on there. Now I don't put very much. You don't need a whole lot. But I do kind of, you know, kind of press it together so it's all around the middle of the top of the pumpkin. And then I put it on the rod, trim up the Spanish moss a little bit. And then I decide, you know, I need to put some Spanish moss between the bottom of the first pumpkin and the top of the second pumpkin. So I'm slowly pulling it apart a little bit because, you know, I already glued that down. And so I'm putting some glue on the top of the second pumpkin, and I'm going to put the Spanish moss around it. So like I said, before you put your pumpkins on the metal rod, go ahead and put your Spanish moss on first. And you see how the pumpkin wasn't going to sit up straight? For one thing, I put that bottom pumpkin on upside down. So the part that I took the stem out of is on the very bottom, and I should have had it the other way around. But anyway, I did adjust the rod a little bit, and I was able to bend it somewhat to make it stand up straight. And now I'm putting some hot glue on the top pumpkin so that I can put my Spanish moss on there. And then I decided I want to put a wood round on the bottom. Now this wood round, I want to say I probably got it from Hobby Lobby, but I cannot be sure. It could have come from the Dollar Tree. It does not have a hole in it. And I think most of the ones that came from the Dollar Tree had a hole in it and were probably smaller. So I want to say Hobby Lobby, but I'm not sure. So I just glued the bottom of the last pumpkin onto the wood round. And as I'm looking around my pumpkins, I see that, you know, I need some more moss in there. So I'm just going to put some hot glue in and then fill in some areas with some more moss. And it was kind of the leftover moss, you know, when you pull it apart. So, you know, it's just like pieces. So you want to kind of bang it a little bit to make sure that the parts that don't stick fall off. And see right there, I was bending the rod a little bit because I wanted it to stand up straight. And now I decide to make a bow. So I have some raffia or raffia. I don't know which way to say it. I call it mostly raffia, I think. Raffia. Anyway, I take some strips of raffia and I make a bow. And I want all my pieces to be the same size. So once I get a bunch that are the same size, probably like 5 or 6, then I fold it in half and cut that loop. And now I have about 10 or 12 pieces. And I'm just going to make a shoestring bow. You could just make a loop out of it and then tie it in the middle with some jute or something, or even some more of the raffia. But I just went ahead and tied a shoestring bow. And then I trim up the ends a little bit. And then I put it in between my first and second pumpkin. And I'm just looking to see what portion of this I want to be the front of my pumpkins. And I decide that's a good place, so I'm just going to put the glue on the back of the bow and then put it on my pumpkin in between the first and the second one. And I actually thought I was done here. But then I decided, you know what? I need to put some raffia on the bottom pumpkin on the wood round. So I add some hot glue and I got my Spanish moss. Did I say raffia? No, I want to put Spanish moss on my wood round, not raffia. Spanish moss. So I just put some hot glue down and then put my Spanish moss in it. And I didn't even burn myself this time. I mean, it's amazing. 3 videos and I did not burn myself. That is amazing because usually every time I use the hot glue gun, I get blisters. But I was good this time. I need to mark this on my calendar. So I just continue adding the Spanish moss all the way around my bottom pumpkin, gluing it onto the wood round, and then I give it a haircut because I want to make sure that the wood round is what is going to be sitting on the table and not the moss. And then I want some distinction between the layers of moss, so I give it a little more of a haircut where the pumpkins are, you know, in between the pumpkins. You'll see that here in a minute. Well, actually, I guess I add a little more moss to my pumpkins. And then I do that. It's hard to remember what you do. You do the videos one day, you do the voiceover. Well, you edit it one day, another day, and then you do your voiceover the day after. It's hard to remember what everything is that you've done. But if you can see where the moss is kind of coming down, like from the top of the pumpkin to the bottom of the pumpkin, I want it to have some distinction there. So I am going to trim that up. I do like the look of Spanish moss, but let me tell you, this stuff is messy. It gets everywhere. And then if you got fans going, oh my goodness. And a piece of that, and I add another piece of it on there. And I think that's it. There it is. My pumpkin stack. Let me know what you think. Do you like it? Again, I'm Liz with Liz's Crafts, and if you like what you see, give me a thumbs up. If you would like to subscribe, please feel free to do so. If you don't want to, that's okay too. I'll see you later.